in the Municipal Waste Reduction Branch. I've worked on the Sustainable Materials Recovery Program, which we're going to call SMRP, since I started with MassDEP in 2019. And I'm filling in here for Janine Bishop, who is the former grant manager. She recently left the group for another position within the agency. I'm going to start by going over a few housekeeping logistics, and then we've also invited Janine to pop in and say a few words before we start the formal webinar. So before we really get into it, I'd like to review these technological aspects for those of you who aren't familiar with Zoom. Hard to believe at this point, but just in case. You all should be currently muted, or if you're not, please mute yourself. We have specific times throughout the webinar where we're going to break for questions. And at that time, you can raise your hand and then it will unmute you so you can state your question. If you want to do this, you go to the reactions button on the bottom of the screen. You can see here, the slide shows you number 6. And you can also use the chat feature, which is right here, number 4, throughout the webinar. And we will address the questions and comments during the break. So anything that comes into the chat, we will go through those as well. Please rename yourself right here, number 3, so that we know who you are and what town or city or other organization you're from. So you just hover over your name, click more, and choose rename to change your screen name. And that way it's displayed to all of the presenters and participants. So you want to do your name and organization. Here's the example, Erin Victor, MassDEP. And then finally, if you're just joining us, we are recording this webinar. So we're going to be sharing it via email and posting it to our website after today. Here's our basic agenda for the day. I'm going to start off with some context and background information about SMRP. Last year, we made a lot of changes to RDP and small scale grants, and we talked about them at one of our MERC meetings back in December 2021, and then again in May 2022 at our annual SMRP grant webinar, which is what today is. So I'm not going to review all the changes here again because most of you have heard it already. So the majority of information in this SMRP application is the same. We'll point out a few additions and changes as we review each of the grant categories. After my overview, we're going to hear from Michaela Guglielmi, who is our newest branch member, although she's been with us since July, so at this point she's not really new, but she's going to go over the minimum eligibility requirements and the applications for drop-off equipment and food waste carts. Then we'll come back to me. I'll review the mattress collection containers and the pay-as-you-throw grant programs. Brooke Nash will review our featured grant, which is for the establishment of a permanent household hazardous waste facility. And finally, Will Mumba will review the RDP and small scale applications. So we've scheduled the webinar for 2 hours. We have plenty of time for questions. We're going to pause for breaks after each speaker throughout the webinar. And we also have enough time to hear from our outgoing grant manager, Janine Bishop. So at this point, I'm going to turn the mic over to her so she can say a few words to the group.
Thank you, Rachel. As Rachel mentioned, I'm no longer the grant manager for the Municipal Waste Reduction Branch. I have moved over to MassDEP's Drinking Water Program as their grant manager. I started my new position on Monday. But I did want to just have a few moments to say or to thank you all for all the work you do in waste reduction. You've all been an inspiration to me and to the rest of the team over the years. I'm so impressed with the work you do and how you strive to do the best for your residents, provide them with the best services. And yeah, it's a little tough here. Let me gather my thoughts here. I wanted to actually offer a special thank you to those who've contributed to the RDP spending report. The RDP spending, approved spending list. The special request never ceased to amaze me. Well, a lot of them were definite no's. Most of them were, why didn't we think of that? And as a result, as you all know, the list was updated regularly over the years. So no matter how much I grumbled, it helped me and the team evolve that list into what it is today. And I think that there are plenty of options provided on that list for you all to spend your funds, reinvest in your programs, earn more points, and reduce waste. So that being said, I just wanted to wish you all well with your grant applications. Also mention, I'm not going far. I hope to see some of you. I hope to see all of you in the future, and maybe some of you in my new role as the grant manager for the drinking water program. So there's lots of changes with both me and Brooke leaving, but I'm sure once things get settled and our positions are filled, you will all be in good hands. And again, wish you luck. And thank you for all the comments. I see them coming in.
Thank you so much, Janine.
Thank you.
I'm really glad that Janine's staying in our agency because she'll be right down the hall. So she'll definitely be supporting us as we work through this grant cycle this year. So
yes, thank you. All right, have a great webinar all.
bye. Have a good day.
Back to the drinking water program.
Okay. Yes, so I'm gonna get back to business here. So some of you know this already, but I just want to set the stage and make sure that we have context for our grant program that we're going to be talking about today. So the Sustainable Material Recovery Program was created through the Green Communities Act and MassDEP regulations that qualified 6 of our municipal waste combustors to earn what we call waste energy certificates, also called WECs, under the state's renewable portfolio standard. And so under the state statute, the waste to energy plants must give 50% of the revenue earned from the sale of these credits to MassDEP, and then that's put in a trust to fund our recycling programs. So the SMRT program is in its 14th year, and the WEC funds both the staff and our grants. I'll also mention a few words about the Solid Waste Master Plan. We call it's similar to SMRT, but it's SWMP. So another acronym for you. It establishes the Commonwealth's policy framework for reducing and managing solid waste that is generated, reused, recycled, or disposed by Massachusetts residents and businesses. So the Solid Waste Master Plan really dictates everything that we do in the municipal waste reduction branch, and it influences the grants we offer and the programs that we prioritize. MassDEP's 2010 to 2020 Solid Waste Master Plan goal was to reduce solid waste disposal by 30% in 2020. We did not meet this goal. There are many contributing variables, and it's too much to go into for the presentation. You can read about them in the plan if you're really interested. But the point is that our waste reduction goal for the next cycle, the 2030 master plan, is to reduce disposal again by 30%. So we really need to do all we can to reduce solid waste. And many of our grant programs that we're going to be talking about are created specifically with this in mind. So the link to the plan is included here. I'll mention that there are also links embedded throughout the presentation. And then we incorporated a master list at the very end, the last few slides, for convenience. So when we share this out after the webinar, you will have access to all the links. In considering how the municipal waste reduction branch can contribute to waste reduction for the Commonwealth, we've looked at our municipal trash numbers over the years. It's important to know that this data is a subset of data. It's based on what is reported to MassDEP by you all through the Recycling and Solid Waste Survey. So it only includes residential trash tonnage, and it only includes from the residential generators that are part of the municipal trash program. So that's just one caveat. But regardless, this slide is interesting because it shows that residential trash decreased steadily from 2012 to 2017. Then it slowly started going back up, peaking in 2020. The increase for 2020 is likely due to the COVID-19 pandemic. I know more people were home. We saw an increase in both trash and recycling during this time. Our 2021 data shows a marked decrease. It's back to around the 2017 levels, which is a positive change. And it suggests that some things in the trash and recycling world are kind of getting back to normal. But if we want to meet our solid waste master plan goals for 2030, we need to do just more than get back to normal. So last year, we revamped the RDP and small scale initiative grants to address areas where we felt that municipalities could make bigger impacts. We are still QAQCing the data from 2022. So while it's a little too early to see the effects of the changes, we hope that we will continue this downward trend in 2022 and beyond. This is a very busy slide. We share it every year, and I don't expect you to take much from it with the exception of the last two columns to show that the number of applications received and the amount awarded. So it shows information from 2013, which was pre-RDP, and then the first 4 years of RDP awarded. And you can see the increase in the number of RDP applications and the award amount over the years. Similarly, this slide shows the most recent 5 years of grants, and you can see we have steadily increased our funding. More importantly, though, is the 2022 data. So last year was the first year that municipalities could get into the RDP grant program by earning 1 single point. The change was huge for dozens of municipalities that had never even sought this grant before because, maybe they didn't want to put in the effort for a grant that they weren't likely to get. So now, as long as a municipality meets the minimum eligibility requirements and they can demonstrate at least one task completed in the RDP menu, they can get something. And then, it also benefits them because they can see what other opportunities that they can earn points in for the future awards. So in 2022, we had 265 municipalities apply for RDP and all 265 were awarded. Our total amount distributed also went up a little bit to 3.36 million. And again, we hope that we get more municipalities participating this year as well. We continue to assess the program each year. This slide is meant to show the point fluctuation for municipalities earning RDP over the last 3 years. It's a little confusing, but I just want to make a few points here. You can see that prior to last year, most municipalities had 0 point fluctuation. So the green and blue lines, you can see like the big sharp increase there right at the 0 level. So that means that they were just kind of coasting by, doing the same thing every year. The yellow line shows what happened last year when we expanded many of the options in the RDP criteria, and we even created a new criteria for diversity, equity, inclusion, so DEI initiatives. And more than 50 municipalities increased their overall total by at least 1 point. So see, you can see the little spike here. They got at least 1 point, and then some got even more. So that was a positive change. This slide is another view. It provides data for a subset of municipalities. We just went through Abington through AIR. And in the past, you can kind of see that most municipalities were stagnant, or sometimes they even learned less points over time. Last year was different. As we expanded the categories and offered more options, most municipalities were able to increase the number of points they earned. And you can even see 2 new municipalities coming onto the scene, Alfred and Avon. And so our intent for the RDP program is to continue providing incentives and challenges to motivate municipalities to earn more points over time. The RDP funds that the municipality earns through this grant, they should go directly back into the program. And so you can really target the areas that you're missing out. So to constantly improve your program and expand your offerings over time. MassDEP is committed to advancing equity, diversity, and environmental justice through its public investments. The agency seeks to prioritize the direction of these resources to benefit EJ communities and address environmental inequalities. So to that end, our grants and funding programs include criteria and evaluation parameters that are going to emphasize equity, diversity, and environmental justice, and to be consistent with each program's statutory authority and our source of funding. So a municipality that meets any of the above criteria, these 4, qualifies as an EJ community. The definition and list of EJ communities has changed in the last couple of years. It's regularly reviewed and updated by the Massachusetts Executive Office of Environmental Affairs. So we call it EEA. In regards to our grant program, our staff worked with Deneen Simpson, who is the Director of Environmental Justice at MassDEP, in determining how we're going to recognize EJ populations in regard to our grants. So last year, we decided to provide full funding through RDP at the advanced level to a subset of environmental justice communities. So basically, they're funded at the full point value, no matter how many points they earn. And if this is confusing, I know Will's going to talk about the different point values later in the presentation. But the point is that in order to be considered in this subset for RDP grant purposes, we require a community meet this criteria. So they either have to meet items 1, 2, and 3, or item 4. And for either option, they have to have at least 45% or more of their residents live in an EJ census block group. So from there, we came down with a narrowed list of RDP for RDP grant purposes, like which municipalities meet these criteria and have 45% of residents. So this is the list for 2022. It's updated each year. We take into consideration new data, including the most recent US Census. Last year, the list was 47 municipalities. This year, there are 51 municipalities that meet the RDP environmental justice population criteria. So there are a few new municipalities. There's also a few that got bumped off. So please make sure to double check your status this year, since it may have changed. The list is found in the RDP details document on our website as well. And if you don't see your community here and you were here last year, if you have any questions, you can let me know, and you can contact Deneen Simpson from EEA, and we can go over the data that was reviewed for this. Okay, I'm almost done with my section. What I want to talk about here is that there's a lot of things that we look at during the evaluation. So we ask that you please, when you submit your application, pay close attention to what we require for documentation. There were over 1,700 data points for us to review last year, and we didn't always have the time to reach out if the wrong attachment was attached or there was an incorrect web link, and some of you lost points as a result. And especially, this year, we have a lot of staff changes, so I think just be patient with us as we complete the evaluations. The goal is to release our awards again in the fall, as we usually do. So we're hoping to stay on the fall schedule, but just be patient. And if you do hear from some of us at MassDEP, if we have questions about your application, please try to have a prompt response. So.
Rachel, Phil Goddard has his hand up.
Oh, sure. Phil, you can unmute.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for the updates, Rachel. Again, my congratulations to Janine and best of luck to Will. Given all the changes you mentioned, 3 key employees, Brooke, and all the complexities, your last point is really critical, because I think many of us in the municipal world that respond to this. Here's the webinar on the grant that's due in a month, and sometimes, we're now at the end of the fiscal year. It's busy for us. We're very busy. And we crack it open and we go, okay, oh boy, there were 6 things I needed to do and all the paperwork, and you get discouraged and you may miss something, but you might have been able to get done had you started earlier. And many of the items are the same year to year. I understand that, but it's not definitive. And so not for now, not for today, but I would ask that you all consider maybe this summer a feedback session, listening session with some of us to give you a better way to align the way this program is rolled out, that I think you may get better responses, reduce the stress on you and the staff having to do all the fine tuning, and actually get more participation where we're started earlier in the cycle to match the fiscal year, because literally we're 9/10 of the way through the fiscal year and it's due in a month. And I don't think I'm alone in saying that, sometimes you crack it open at the last minute, we're running operations and things. So I hope that helps, but I think it's an opportunity with all the changes that are occurring there, maybe to take a little time this summer to maybe kind of look at the bigger picture, maybe as a way we can help reduce your stress and ours. Because I know I'm scrambling, and then we got to ask, well, what about this? Can I word it this way, that way? And that puts stress on you and phone calls, and we're all coming down to a very tight deadline. So that's my just general comment. And thank you for all the information you're providing today. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, we'll definitely consider that comment. I think it's, we're at a time with so many staff changes. I think we will be able to kind of take a look at our program and see okay, we don't maybe not want to maintain the status quo, and how can we improve it? So Brooke wants to chime in here, I think.
I just wanted to chime in as the historian of the group, since this is my 27th grant cycle with MassDEP. Not to put too fine a point on it, but when I started, we issued the grant application in the summer, usually by late July, and with the applications were due mid-September. And the feedback we got from municipalities was that then they were not able to get grant awards in time to plan for the following fiscal year's grant cycle. And so it was, anyway, so we intentionally moved it up. This was before we had, well, actually, it may have coincided with our SMRP funding, which actually what made that new funding source enabled us to carry the funds over from fiscal year to fiscal year, as opposed to requiring that everything be spent by June 30th of the following year. So anyway, just an historical footnote. I agree with Rachel that there is certainly room to evaluate, and if moving this, going back to the future and pushing it into a September date, maybe that works better.
Thanks, Brooke. There's a lot of history here and a lot of details. And I think if we just kind of all get our calendars out and map it out and try to determine when money would be spent and when things are due, with some folks that are actually using the system on the other end of the, as the recipients of all this and trying to prepare it. I see a lot of folks are agreeing with me that I think maybe we can come up with a hybrid or maybe a modified one, but kind of invest some time this summer with the new staff. So thank you for that. That helps. But I know I'm stressing a little bit because now, budgets are coming to the end of the cycle and you're focused on a whole bunch of other things. So thank you for your time.
Thanks. And definitely take advantage of your MAC, your municipal assistance coordinators. That's what they're here for. So reach out to them if you need help. You can also, if you don't know how to do this, your MACs know how to do this. You could print out your application from last year. So that can sometimes help to say, oh, what did I do last year? And it can give you, a starting point. So that's also hopefully a little help there. But I hear you.
Rachel, there is one, I thought this is a clarifying question. I thought maybe you'd like to address.
Sure.
It says, curious to know if we're not on the RDP list for the population density qualification. Does this mean we would not be able to get grants? So I just want you to clarify that.
So I think this question, I think this question has to do with the EJ. So if you were not on the new EJ list, which I can scroll here, if your community was on there last year and not this year, I think the best thing to do is to contact Deneen Simpson, and I can get her contact information. It might mean that you're no longer in that 45% threshold of residents, because this was updated with our US Census data. You can still get grants. The difference is in the evaluation. If you earn less than 10 points for RDP, if you're not an EJ population, you get a smaller payment. You only get the full payment if you earn 10 points or more, or if you're on this list, you get the full payment no matter how many points. So you'll still have an opportunity to get grants. It just might look a little bit different depending on what options that you have implemented. So I hope that helps. Okay, and so now I'm going to turn the mic over to Michaela Guglielmi, and you will hear about these requirements. So the first two have always been a requirement, and in fact, ReTrack will not permit a municipal grant application to file a grant request without your recycling solid waste survey or the RDP spending report filed. So most of you have already done this. The problem is, in the past, many municipalities filed their survey after the February 15th deadline. And so that kind of happened after we pulled information to conduct our QA/QC on the data. So it would mean like we have to conduct a second round for the second set of batches, and that holds up RDP review. So again, as Phil said, most people did submit these two items already, but if you didn't, that's just something that the earlier you can do it, the better. It definitely helps us out. We got 300 surveys this year before the deadline, and I think that's a record. So 300 of you are good to go right into your applications, I think. And the last item here is our notification of biorecycled policy. So we do feel it's important to require municipalities both to have recycled content purchasing policy and that they let the municipal departments know about it, because what's the point of a policy if nobody even knows it exists? So we started asking for this third item early last year by the same February 15th deadline as the survey. And we hoped that the policy would have more meaning when everybody submitted it early rather than last minute as a grant requirement. So this was our second year kind of pushing this early submissions, and we're really appreciative of all the timely submittals. So Michaela's going to talk more about this requirement. I'm going to hand the floor over to her now, and she'll also talk about a couple of the grants that she supports. So there you go, Michaela.
Thank you, Rachel. Yeah, so I'm already kind of introduced. So I think you can go to the next slide. And the first requirement, so before you even apply to any of the grants in our SMART program, you're going to fill out the certification of minimum eligibility form. These are the 4 things that you'll have to check off on that form, and I'll go into all of them in more detail. So the next slide just shows a screenshot of what that form will look like when you go into your ReTrack account. You may have already seen your notification of biorecycled policy has been uploaded by me if you submitted it before February 15th. And just to go into more detail on the next slide about the biorecycled policy. So before February 15th, I received 292 municipalities, so great job. And that was more than last year, which is great. But unfortunately, out of that 292, about 39 of those either weren't approved or needed to be revised. So we just wanted to refresh what is required in this notification. It has to be in an email or memo form that's dated in the fiscal year, sent to department heads by either your mayor or maybe if you have a purchasing officer. And it just needs one statement about why it's important to buy products with recycled content, which is to support recycling markets. And on that notification, you'll need to attach the policy itself. And if you're completely new to this, we have model language in that link, and these slides will be available after to go back to all these links. So if you're brand new, we have model language to draft a new policy. And just make it, put it on your calendar for maybe like a New Year's resolution. You don't have to wait until the February 15th deadline. You can send it to me. I mean, I think we send the first reminder out in December, so. And then on the next slide, I'll do a good example. So this is actually the city of Medford. So the first screenshot is their notification in an email form sent from the CPO, dated in the fiscal year, sent to all users. And that first paragraph, it says there's no economic motivation for manufacturers to use raw materials. We have sample wording. You could use wording like that. And your memo doesn't even have to be this long. All we require in this memo is that content sentence. And then you'll see attached to this email, the city of Medford has their energy policy attached. And then my second screenshot is page 3 from their policy, which a lot of you probably recognize this wording. Again, that first paragraph in the policy is that example wording that we look for. So yeah, so we can go to the next slide. I wanted to use Medford as an example since they just updated their policy, because we're seeing a lot of policies come through that are a little old. Like this one was from 1997. And then on the next slide, you'll see this isn't even technically a policy, it's special meeting notes, and it's from 1988, before I was even born. So, and then the next slide is just another example of an old dated policy. So on the next slide, we're hoping over the next several years that most municipalities, if they have not done so already, will update their policies into maybe a new model of this environmentally preferred purchasing and sustainable purchasing policy. So it should be about more than just purchasing items with recycled content. You can expand to sustainable purchasing for everything you're purchasing for your municipality. And we do already have some municipalities that have adopted this, and it's live and active in their town, and we have sample language for this. So reach out to me or your municipal assistance coordinator or your MAC, and if you're interested in updating your policy, especially if you have one of those dates from the 90s, we can help you update it. And then I just wanted to point out this great guide from OSD. Again, all these links will be available. If you're looking to purchase anything that's eco-friendly, from recycled paper or cleaning products, there's a ton of options on this guide. So just to keep in mind for purchasing for your town. All right, so the next box you check off on that certification form is the recycling and solid waste surveys. So you have to report data and surveys from the previous 2 years before you are eligible for our SMRP grants. So 303 municipalities have already submitted these surveys before February 15th. So great job. But if you have not done that yet, it's not too late, and you could still gather this data and qualify for our grants. I actually used to be the city of Salem's recycling coordinator, and I would submit these surveys, and it's a little time consuming, but it does get easier and easier every year. And I always used to, again, I can help you, or your MAC can help you look at retrack. You can look at what you reported last year on the retrack and kind of compare, and it does get easier every year. And my MAC, Gail, is super helpful, so definitely use your MAC to help you. And then the third box on the certification form is the waistband compliance. You just have to certify that all municipal offices and schools have active recycling programs. And if they do not yet, then they will start one within 30 days of the grant award. And the final box on that certification form, which this won't apply to most of you would be in compliance, but if you are aware of any other DEP compliance issues within your municipality, even if it's like something's not in compliance with water or not even related to us in the solid waste, you may not qualify, but most of you will be okay for this. All right, so now that you've filled out your certification form, you can start applying to our grants. So one of the grants we offer that I manage is the drop-off equipment and universal waste shed grant. And on the next slide, this is what the grant is for. Any items that contain mercury that you would want to collect from your municipality. This link on our SMRP website has the details document. So if you're interested, review that document and you could let me know if you have questions. And this is also a one-time grant. So if you've already been awarded a shed in the past, you won't be able to get another one. And so, yeah, this is a grant for up to $5,000 reimbursement. This photo is from a past grantee this past year who you'll see that nice sticker on their shed that says funded from DEP, which we do require. And now this municipality can collect that material and store it safely. And then the FAC 110 state contract is for processors who could pick up this equipment to process it. And yeah, so that's the drop off. And then another grant that I oversee is the organics carts. So this grant is for reimbursement for up to $20 per cart with a maximum award of $105,000. And if you wanted to purchase any organics carts, the FAC 113 state contract is linked right there. And that contract has not just organics carts, there's recycling carts, a lot of great stuff on that state contract to check out. And then also we have a details document on our SMRP website to review. And on that details document, you'll see this could be for starting a new cart program, or maybe like a pilot program, or if you already have an existing food waste cart collection program in your city and you want to expand on it. So yeah, and then the last thing we just wanted to point out for this grant is if you were awarded, you would have to submit an implementation plan, which we don't require this for a lot of our other grants. So it's nothing too complicated. It's just a write-up with these 4 points about the start date of your program, describing the program, talking about financing the program, and any other steps that you'll need for this program. And if anyone has any questions about the certification form or those 2 grants that I went over, we could take questions breaks. Yes, Missy has her hand up, and then Tim after.
So I just wanted to clarify, so the $105,000, does that also include the $1 for the label?
I believe so. Maybe Rachel can confirm too. Mm-hmm.
I think so. The way it's written is you get like $20 for each food cart, and then up to $1 for the label.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think Tim Kilhart, if you'd like to unmute yourself.
Thank you. My question is that first one that you're talking about, the $5,000 that you can get for a reuse facility for recycling. You show light bulbs and stuff like that. We currently have one for light bulbs and batteries and that kind of stuff already, but what about one for electronics? Like we have one for that needs to be replaced for televisions, computers, printers, and that kind of stuff in a separate trailer. Is there, would that qualify under that?
No, yeah, right. Maybe Rachel wants to explain. I see her shaking her head.
Yeah, this is for universal waste only, and because it's coming out of a different funding mechanism, we have some money from the mercury reduction and recycling program, and so we're able to use that to kind of fund, you know, a shed like this so that municipalities can collect mercury containing items. So it's not like a full e-waste program, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. Any other questions in the chat or anything else?
There is one in the chat. Do private haulers have to meet mercury recycling policies?
I believe so. The private hauler. What do you think, Rachel?
Yeah, I mean, it's a universal waste, so they probably
Absolutely.
either wouldn't collect them from residents, or they would collect them and have to send them to a mercury processor. So I'm not sure,
Yeah,
but
if the
they definitely have to
question-
follow. Yeah, can you?
Well, if the question is, are private haulers allowed to knowingly put mercury containing items in the trash? The answer is no. This is the prohibition on disposal of mercury containing products, which is actually broader than universal waste because it includes products that have mercury added to them, like mercury switches and thermostats, but also elemental mercury, which is not part of universal waste. But anyway, that prohibition is the broadest prohibition we have on, it's actually, the regulation lives outside of the waste bans, which regulates the disposal facility. The mercury disposal prohibition applies to everybody. You be the grocery store, the hardware store, the private hauler. So yes, it's very comprehensive.
Great, thanks, Brooke. Hope that clarified the question. Thanks for, again, all the history that I haven't learned yet. So I guess that's it for questions for me. We'll go back to Rachel. Thank you.
Hey, so it's coming back to me. I'm going to talk about the mattress recycling incentive program, which is now focused on mattress collection containers. I took over the mattress program, which we also sometimes refer to as MRI, mattress recycling incentive, in August 2019. So I've been involved with this mattress work for the past 3.5 years, and they're getting a lot of attention lately due to the recent waste ban. Again, a reminder that MassDEP published the 2030 Solid Waste Master Plan in 2021, and with it, they included the regulations for waste disposal ban on mattresses. And that became effective November 1, 2022. So basically, any item or material that's subject to a waste ban cannot be disposed of as trash, meaning they cannot be taken to a landfill or incinerator. So this helps to promote recycling and reuse, and MassDEP has had these waste bans for different materials dating back to the 1990s. So we've been preparing for a waste ban for about 7 years. So we first started offering the MRI grant to municipalities in 2016. The specifics of the grant award have changed over the years. This year is the same as last year. And so it's focused specifically on helping municipalities procure mattress collection containers, which is often the biggest burden to getting a program up and running because it's a high upfront cost to procure a container. And even though the specifics of the award have changed since the first iterations a few years ago, the overall goal is to still promote source separation and recycling of residential mattresses and box springs. So these can be collected at a drop-off site, such as a transfer station or recycling center, or they can be collected curbside and then aggregated at a central location that houses this container. The grant provides reimbursement of up to $10,000 for a new mattress container. Last year, we had 45 applications and we ended up awarding 40 municipalities. We anticipate that this grant option will continue to be popular this year. So our decisions are really going to depend on the number of applications we receive. I can tell you during the evaluation process, we'll take into consideration municipalities that have not previously been awarded a mattress container, municipalities that have agreed to act as a regional collection site, or that will serve residents of multiple cities and towns, or residents outside their municipally run trash program. So apartments and in condos and things like that. Here are some examples of mattress collection containers that we've awarded in the past. I want to mention here, there's a few state contracts that might be useful to municipalities purchasing a container, whether it's through the grant program or on their own. The first is FAC 113, which used to be called FAC 87. And this includes 30-foot and 40-foot closed-top roll-offs manufactured by Waste Equip. These are ideal if the municipality is going to collect mattresses and haul them to central aggregation location. And it offers a little more flexibility than some other containers. Another option is FAC 86, which is for solid waste and recycling services. But you might not know it also includes pricing for equipment. So it's a little different in that you're not really purchasing from a manufacturer, but from a vendor. However, it may be an option for municipalities to procure sea containers, stationary containers, or other options to suit their needs. And especially now that there's a lot of industry consolidation, some companies may have excess containers that could be suitable for storing mattresses. And then a third option for municipalities is to check with the mattress recycling vendors themselves and their on-state contract FAC 90, because some of them do sell new or refurbished containers. I'll remind you that you do not have to use any of the state contracts. In fact, in recent years, many municipalities have not. So you're welcome to procure a container from any vendor you see fit, as long as it meets the standard requirements for keeping mattresses clean and dry and is approved by MassDEP. So when you're choosing a container, make sure to get something that has a cover, watertight seals, so that it will keep the mattresses clean and dry. Reused or refurbished containers are allowed. That's a great option. And this finally, remember, if you're going to be applying for this grant, do not purchase the container before you're awarded or before a grant agreement is signed. So you can do some research, but don't pull the trigger there until you get the award, because MassDEP cannot reimburse municipalities for items that were purchased prior to an executed grant agreement. And, just quickly here, I want to mention a few things that you can think about before you complete the online application. The application is going to ask you about your preferred container size. In most cases, a 20-foot or 40-foot roll-off or stationary container. Some municipalities might be able to accommodate a 48-foot trailer or 53-foot transfer trailer, or you can propose an alternative. Municipalities that should consider their collection sites and logistics of managing a collection program. So the application will ask you about these things. And basically, it's just a way to give MassDEP some information about the site and how ready the municipality is. You do not have to have selected a mattress recycler at this time, but the application asks you if you've identified one that might be able to service your town. So a little planning and research is needed. It helps to make sure that you're ready for if you are awarded when the time comes, especially because there are so many delays, shipping delays and issues with supply chain. So having kind of this information is great to get you started. Finally, here's the link to the details about the mattress recycling incentive grant. I've also included the MassDEP website on mattress recycling. So this site has contact information for the recycling vendors. It has presentations from webinars and workshops, case studies, and a really great detailed guidance document for municipalities that are considering embarking on a mattress recycling program. I'm going to switch gears and move on to our pay as you throw. Can we hold questions till after me?
Sure, yeah.
Sorry, is that okay? We're going to switch gears and move on to our pay as you throw program grants, also called PAYT. Many of you might already be familiar with the concept of pay as you throw, but basically it's defined as a solid waste program where residents pay a per unit fee for the disposal of household trash, but they're not charged a direct fee for recycling. So this creates a financial incentive for them to reduce their waste, reuse and recycle more, and throw out less trash. Pay as you throw remains a top priority for MassDEP. It's the single most effective tool for reducing waste and increasing recycling, and there are many environmental and financial benefits associated with these programs. So if we want to meet our goals, we really want to prioritize pay as you throw. This is what MassDEP calls this map of pride. It's meant to visually show how much trash communities in Massachusetts have generated. The data is from 2021 because we're still analyzing the 2022 data that was submitted in the recent survey. But if you look closely, the municipalities that are designated as PAYT, they're identified by the gray hash marks. They're usually in the green and yellow range. A few are light orange, but the municipalities without PAYT are orange, red, or even dark red. Pay as you throw municipalities averaged about 1,247 pounds of trash per household per year, and that's 29% less than non-pay-as-you-throw municipalities. So this has stayed consistent over the years, and it's a big difference when you add it all up. I want to briefly cover the technical assistance grant called TA grant for pay-as-you-throw. And this consists of 80 hours of dedicated in-kind technical assistance from your MAP. We've offered this TA grant for pay-as-you-throw for several years. And while we always recommended it for municipalities thinking about pay-T, it's very beneficial. It sets you up for a successful program. Last year during our 2022 grant cycle, we required it for any municipality that applies for a pay-as-you-throw grant funding through SMRP. So it became a prerequisite for the grant application. It doesn't mean you have to have completed the full 80 hours before you apply, but your municipality has to have applied and been approved to start working on it with your MAC. This format has already been going well, and we have several municipalities that are undergoing a technical assistance grant right now, and that we expect to apply for the 2023 grant cycle. Here's a quick breakdown of the pay-as-you-throw award available to municipalities. As you can see, the amount of funding varies with the program. It's largely dependent on the size of the community and the number of households that are served. I'll point out that the 35-gallon trash carts, they're valued here at $30 per household, which is the highest. And the reason for this is because we know that these carts are expensive. So the $30 helps to offset the cost of these carts. And they really are a valuable, we see it as a valuable investment in waste reduction for the municipality. As you could see from the previous slide, the grant is available to both new and upgraded pay-as-you-throw programs, and both drop-off and curbside programs, and all types of programs in between. So municipalities can choose between pay-as-you-throw bags, stickers, tags, or carts that are 35-gallon sizes or less. The specific amount of funding is dependent on which of these programs you choose and the households in your community, but there is a cap of $300,000 per award. The grant funds can be used for a variety of activities to help you get started. So for curbside municipalities that are implementing the 35-gallon trash carts, the funding is going to go directly towards purchasing the carts. But if you're doing a bag program, the funding can go to purchase bags, to do outreach materials. It can go for a program coordinator and then other approved expenses. So there's some more flexibility with that. And then just a few things to keep in mind if you're thinking about applying for this grant. Applicants, I'm going to reiterate several times, they must have submitted and been approved for a technical assistance grant with their MAC. So that's the first thing we look at. For applicants that are not getting the 35-gallon trash carts, but they're going to be doing what we call a full pay-as-you-throw program, meaning like all trash needs to be placed in pay-as-you-throw bags, or all trash needs to have a sticker or tag, they must have comprehensive hauler regulations in place. So this means that private haulers that are servicing residents in the town have to provide integrated trash and recycling services at the same time. It's something to keep in mind. If you don't have a regulation already. And PS though, comprehensive hauler regulations will help get points toward RDP. So it's something that all municipalities should consider anyway. And we have model regulations that if municipalities adopt can get you an extra 2 points for RDP. Close out this section, I'm going to point out the link which has our details for the grant. I've included the MassDEP Pay-as-you-throw website, which is a ton of information, including fact sheets, including those maps and presentations and case studies that we've updated some case studies in the past 6 months, so you should check it out. And then there is a link to the most recent workshop, which was held last year by MassDEP and the MACs, and it focuses specifically on how pay-as-you-throw can work in your community. So those are some great resources to check out. And I don't know if there was questions for me or if we should go to Brooke. She's the next speaker in line.
There are 3 questions if you want to do them now about MassDEP.
Sure, that's fine.
The first one is there any effort by MassDEP to create regional mattresses recycling centers? This is a big effort in labor and cost for a single municipality.
I think it's a private business would have to, you know, apply and create, you know, their footprint that, you know, if they want to service. That's what I think they're asking, you know, a regional mattress processing site. It would really have to be up to the business.
Okay.
Are you sure it's not about municipal? Because we do.
I don't know. Can you maybe repeat the question?
Is there any effort by MassDEP to create regional mattress recycling centers? So
Yeah,
So municipalities certainly can, and we have a number that already do this, can host a regional collection facility. There are several on the Cape. There's at least one in the Berkshires. So that's a practice that we certainly support and encourage, and it's working in a number of places. Rachel can share lots of good information about those programs.
Yeah, I guess I was confused because I wouldn't call them like a recycling center because they're not really recycling the mattress, but it's aggregating. So like sites where multiple municipalities would aggregate their mattresses within a region. We definitely support that and would consider that positively in the evaluation. If you're talking about just more businesses collecting recycling, you know, creating recycling centers, then I think that's, you know, unfortunately, that's a question for the mattress recyclers themselves.
Collection. I think Christine just posted that she meant Christina, sorry. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so we definitely encourage that. And the MACs can maybe help make connections between municipalities as well. If you guys want to partner together.
All right, thank you. And then switching over to pay as you throw, there's a question of, is there any consideration for overflow pay as you throw?
Well, that's kind of what pay as you throw is you're paying for the overflow of bags that don't, well, that's what we call a hybrid pay as you throw. You pay for the overflow trash bags that don't fit in a standard 35-gallon trash cart. So that's still, it's not full pay as you throw. We call it modified pay as you throw or hybrid, but we have been promoting that the past several years because more municipalities wanted to have trash carts and more haulers wanted to go to automated collection. So that's kind of the step up from the traditional pay as you throw where you're paying for every single bag and every single you know, piece of trash. So I hope that answers the question.
Right. And for pay as you throw, do comprehensive hauler regulations apply to all haulers serving businesses as well?
Yes.
All right, that's all I see in the chat. So if you want to move on.
Okay. So Brooke, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right, thanks, Rachel. Okay, so I'm Brooke Nash. I'm the branch chief for Municipal Waste Reduction until the end of June, when I'm heading off into retirement. So let's go to the next slide. And first, just want to say that for those of you that are involved in hosting household hazardous waste events, you're probably aware that costs have risen steeply in the last 18 months to 2 years, and that the industry is I don't want to say the word turmoil, but that there's been a lot of challenges with communities actually getting dates with their providers. This varies depending on the parts of the state, but and some of that is actually exacerbated by facility closure. So for there was a closure on a fire at a facility in the Midwest, and then most recently, many of us know that there was a fire in Clean Harbors in Braintree. So again, not good news. It's a challenging time for household hazardous waste event planners, as some of you well know. A permanent collection facility provides a really effective alternative to meeting residents' needs for disposing of safely of household hazardous waste. These can be hosted at a DPW collection site, at a transfer station, or another publicly accessible site. And essentially the host community enables the host community to store hazardous waste on site after it's been sorted into hazard categories, and then to contact a vendor on state contract or off state contract, if you so choose, to come in and collect the waste, the accumulated waste at less frequent intervals. This saves a municipality the costly setup fees for a one-day event where a vendor comes out and brings a full complement of staff and trucks and removes everything on site. And I know that the setup fees on the state contract have gone up significantly. And so typically at a permanent site, it means that you don't have a household hazardous waste vendor on site during the event. There are a few exceptions to that, but the DPW staff can be trained to accept waste and sort by hazard category, and then store the material in flame-proof lockers. And then, of course, a permanent collection facility also offers far greater convenience to residents because typically permanent centers are open from early spring until late fall. Some are even open 2 to 3 times per month. So much greater access, much greater convenience. And the cost of operating a permanent facility is typically lower than one-day events, even with the, often doubling, tripling, quadrupling of collection days over the year. When Brookline, I'll use Brookline as an example, when they opened their permanent collection facility at their transfer station, and this is probably 10 to 12 years ago, they received a DP grant, and they went from hosting just 2 household hazardous waste events per year to opening their facility one day a week, and that's spring through fall. They're currently open every Tuesday from 7:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. That's every Tuesday for from spring to fall. Their DPW director reported that their costs actually went down. So they vastly increased the convenience level for their residents and lowered their costs. So just one example. You can go on to the next slide. So the grant details, and I realize for most of you listening to this, if you're hearing this for the first time, you're going to be thinking about maybe this will plant a seed to apply next year. Although I do know that we've got one group on the South Shore who is planning to apply, and Claire Galkowski has been working on this for quite some time. So this is not one of these applications that you're just going to dash off and submit, a month from now. But I'm hoping that we will pique some interest. So we are offering funding to establish new permanent HHW facilities or to upgrade an existing one. The facility must serve residents, obviously, but it can also serve small businesses that qualify as very small quantity generators. And that's identified as a business that I think generates no more than 27 gallons of hazardous waste a month. There's a link to our very small quantity generator regulations on the website and our details document. Applications will be accepted from a single municipality or from a group of municipalities with a lead municipality acting on behalf of them, or from a regional entity, like, for example, the South Shore Recycling Cooperative. And the most significant requirement is that it has to be open one weekend day per month, 8 months of the year. Next slide. So the application process, what you'll do is you'll download our mandatory proposal outline. It is on the SMRP website and completed in Microsoft Word. Recommendation would be that because it's sort of a clunky form to enter into Word, that you simply generate your own, start your own new Word document. Make sure you copy and paste each question, which is the prompt for the information we want to receive, into that Word document. And then you'll be prompted to upload that when you're in ReadTrack as you're submitting your application. I suggest that you carefully read the details document, which is on the SMRP webpage, and we will share these slides. These are all hyperlinks in my slides. And then after you've read it, feel free to call me if you are, if you've been planning all along to submit this. And thank you, Kathy, for posting that details document. And we can set up a time to talk and I can answer questions. But again, this is probably a next year application for most of you. Please, I will say, please do not send a draft application with a request to review it. We can't review applications or draft proposals for people ahead of time, but we are happy to talk with you, answer your questions, give you input and feedback. You should also, when you submit, the time you submit this application, have a site that you're pretty certain is going to work for you. That obviously is a major undertaking. So if you're really just starting out, you're going to want to do that homework first and figure out whether you've got a viable site. Okay, use of the funds, grant funds. Next slide, please. So the funds can be used for a variety of capital costs. So the equipment, the storage lockers, tanks, other equipment like that, site preparation and site improvement, signage, fencing. Also, I should have put on here outreach and education to your residents. Professional services, so things like engineering, site design, legal, and permitting, although we do put a limit of 15% of the award you receive from MassDEP can be expended, no more than 50% on these professional services. Doesn't mean you can't contribute your own funding to pay for those types of costs, but majority of the funding is intended to go towards the capital costs of building your center. You can use it for dedicated personnel for the project during the project development timeline, again, consultants or contractors. And you can budget for training for your staff. So that could be part of it. You're going to build the facility, buy the equipment, and then train your staff to do sorting of materials by hazard category. There's not funding to pay for the collection or processing. So in other words, when a vendor shows up to remove the hazardous waste, that is not part of what this grant is intended to cover. That would be an operating cost. And we will award funds based on the population that's being served and the entities. I mentioned small quantity generators. Small businesses are often really strapped to find a way to safely manage their household hazardous waste. And this is a great way to allow them to use a permanent center. And the grant can run for up to 2 years. So you would have 2 years to get this done. And next slide. Just really quickly, there's an application on DEP's website, which you might want to take a look at. It's not a really challenging website. This is the application you would submit to MassDEP to get permitted for a permanent center for hazardous products, as we call it. And a few details here. James Patterson is your best contact to start with. And he gave a really good overview of the regulations and the center, the application at our April 5th meeting that focused on permanent household hazardous waste centers. If you click on the link here and you go to, it's minute 41, I think 41 minutes and 18 seconds, you'll get Jim. And Jim will run through, it's about 10 minutes. So that could be really helpful. Next slide. So I would strongly encourage you to visit a municipally operated permanent household hazardous waste facility. I feel like it's sort of kind of a well-kept secret, but we actually, Massachusetts is home to 2 regional facilities. One of them is in Devens, the other Lexington, and then there are 9 facilities that serve only that municipality's residents. And these are really diverse communities. I mean, that range from Newton to Brockton, Brookline, to Springfield, Barnstable, Norfolk, Harwich, Nantucket, and Sturbridge. So these range from small to large, more rural to urban, and these are fantastic models. So if this concept is of interest to you, I would urge you to start exploring. I did put up a sign of the Devens Regional Household Hazardous Waste Facility, which was opened with a grant from MassDEP and matching funds. And I believe Tessa David is on the call today. Tessa David and Donna Neely were the 2 masterminds behind this facility. They started out, I think, with 9 member communities. They're up to 14 now. And I believe they also accept, they allow very small quantity generators, those small businesses, to utilize the facility as well. Their costs are lower. than the state contract prices. And it's a wonderful model. So, and there's Tessa chiming in, yes to VSQG. So, and I did check with Tessa yesterday and said, can I throw your name out? She's a terrific mentor and she's incredibly generous with her time. And she said, yes, by all means, I'm happy to answer questions and give tours of the facility. So that is all I have. And if there are questions, Kat, if you want to just ask people to call them and they can unmute themselves, that's fine. If no questions, then people can follow up with me later.
Sure. So I don't see any questions in the chat now, but I'll give it a minute. And again, if you want to raise your hand so you can unmute and ask a question, feel free to do so. It's a lot of information, so maybe people are just kind of sitting on it right now, but feel free to reach out with any questions after the webinar too. Not seeing anything come in. Up to you, Rachel.
Yeah, we can go on to Will to talk about the RDP program, and then we'll have some time at the very end as well. So Will, I'm handing it off.
Thank you, Rachel. Appreciate everyone's time and your patience for this fun part. So my name is Will Mba. Work with the Municipal Waste Reduction Branch. I started in July of 2020. And so I will also be leaving this summer in early July to go to school. And I'm really honored to know and work with most of you. You guys have been really terrific. And in Cameroon, you know, they never say goodbye. They say see you later. So you will still be seeing me in some form, shape. I'm going to be reviewing all the options available for each RDP criterion and changes to the RDP criteria for this spring 2023 grant round. These changes, as well as new additions, will be highlighted in red. Please always refer to the grant guidelines on our webpage as it will provide more details about the changes and requirements. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the Regional Small Scale Initiatives Grant is open to regional groups only. The amount of funding disbursed is based on the population served, and it has the same spending allowances as RDP. Eligibility is limited to those regional groups with a mission of solid waste or recycling management. Next slide, please. Thanks. This slide shows the potential award amount and how it is calculated based on population. Grantees will purchase products based on the approved spending categories and then request reimbursement. Typical purchases include recycled copy paper, public area recycling bins, and e-waste recycling. The population brackets and amount of funds have not changed from last year. It's all the same. Next slide, please. Oh, thank you. So I know that Rachel already went through what RDP is in her slides. Just as a refresher, RDP will provide payments to municipalities that have implemented specific programs and policies proven to maximize reuse, recycling, and waste reduction. There are 12 criteria which you will see in the next slide. And each RDP criterion carries a point value ranging from 1 to 5. The point values vary based on the demonstrated impact on waste diversion, essentially functioning as a best practices framework. Payment brackets are based on households served by the municipal trash program. Earning points means all programs claimed must be in place and operational from July 1st, 2022 through June 30, 2023. You see the last bullet highlighted in red, you know, I want you to pay particular attention because we have heard that some municipalities have posted things on their webpage just to remove them after they have gotten RDP points. We strongly discourage this practice. Thank you. So these are the 12 RDP criteria arranged in alphabetical order. We have bulky items, we have charm, curbside recycling regulations, diversity, equity, and inclusion, also known as DEI in recycling programs, household hazardous waste, organics, recycling center access, reuse programs, solid waste reduction, textile recovery initiative, waste prevention, outreach and education, yard waste. I will describe each in more detail. Bulky items. Nothing has changed in this category from the last addition, which included up to 4 items at no charge before minimum fee applies for 1 point. The fee schedule must be posted on the municipal website, as you will be required to provide a direct link to the fee schedule. Broken or incorrect links may result in loss of point. Next slide, please. Sham must collect 8 items out of 16. The only changes we made is to help municipalities earn more points. We added source-separated gypsum wallboard, highlighted in red. Books or media. This must be a book collection vendor, not a paper recycler or materials recovery facility. Paint collection for reuse by residents and small businesses qualifies. Fire extinguishers, 20-pound and 1-pound propane tanks used to qualify as 1 item. We no longer need to collect 1-pound propane tanks to qualify under this item due to limited outlets available. Sorry. So carpet and styrofoam no longer qualify as well. The reason being that very few municipalities are collecting them. You can always use RDP funds to process your carpet and styrofoam. Christmas lights, shredded paper, marine wrap, and or agricultural wrap collected once a year at alternative location will qualify. Curbside recycling regulations. I know this slide is full of words as always, but nothing has changed from the last revision. In the past, these were 2 separate categories: adopted comprehensive hauler regulation and enforced residential curbside recycling. These are all combined under curbside recycling regulations. All the options that were under comprehensive hauler regulations are still here. We added adopted MassDEP model and adopted comprehensive hauler regulations that require haulers provide recycling to all generators, residential and commercial as bundle service. Mandatory recycling is required of all generators. Next slide, please. Enforce comprehensive hauler regulations that require haulers provide recycling to all generators, residential and commercial as bundle service. Also, mandatory recycling is required of all generators. Next slide. Thanks. Here, municipality enforces mandatory and or quality recyclables, minimum of 19 hours a week for 3 points and 10 hours a week for 1 point. Hauler enforces mandatory and or quality recyclable via hauler contract or municipal standard operating procedures for 1 point. Next slide, please. Diversity, equity, and inclusion in recycling programs. This was a new criterion, and all the categories within this criterion were new. This is meant to increase awareness and recycling access to underserved communities or areas. I want to make a note here that our Recycle Smart web page is a great resource and has template and translation in multiple languages. Next slide, please. Here, there's no change on this slide as well, but we ask that any multilingual information on your website should be readily accessible by your residents. That is very important. Next slide, please. These are the new additions under DEI. Recycling services were provided by the municipality at large apartment buildings, that is 4 or more units, mobile home parks, condominium complexes, and or public housing. The municipal ordinance, bylaw, and or regulation required all residential construction, with the exception of single-family dwellings, to include a provision that requires recycling services be provided to all units. Infrastructure, including space for recycling receptacles and containers, must also be provided. And lastly, the municipal curbside contract included a provision requiring haulers ensure alternative recycling collection for residents with disability. Next slide, please. Household hazardous waste. Again, this one too, nothing has changed in this criterion. Mobile pickup events now qualify and will continue moving forward. A few points to highlight here. The municipal official or contractor vendor must be registered at any of the HSW event through our online notification form. We have those forms that it's available. Directing residents to privately owned facility does not qualify. Again, you've heard about Devins and Tessa. So she's this is her, in her jump shoot, showing off her facility. So people that I'm grateful for, to know and just learn so much from them. Dates listed must be within the fiscal year 2023, which means July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. Or the applicant risks losing points in this criterion. It's very important that you list the date, because otherwise it's going to take so much time in the evaluation process. Next slide, please. Thank you. Source separated organics. On this slide, nothing has changed. Town-wide organics collections is still worth 3 points. Source separated food waste for municipalities that go out to bid with preferred vendor, 1 point. Organics collected weekly. Can pilot it, and it needs to have a minimum of 400 households. It's worth a point. Next slide, please. So here's the slide revision highlighted in red. It says source separated food waste for municipalities that go out to bid with preferred vendor with rate partially or fully offset by municipality or food waste card provided to residents. And then at-home compost bins sold at cost or less with effective promotion and outreach. You'll be required to provide a direct link to the webpage describing this program, which shall include a minimum contact information, pricing, food waste education. You'll also be required to provide the number of households participating in the program. We'll compare this figure to previous year's participation to determine the increase in participation. You will be required to attach promotional materials describing this program. Next slide, please. Access to municipal recycling center. There's been no changes to this criterion. In the past, the second, third, and fourth option was required to be free of charge. This is no longer the case. Next slide. Thank you. Reuse programs. There used to be 4 options in this category as listed on the slide. Swap shed can be opened to the elements with items disposed at the end of the day. So you cannot do that. We also enhance a few of the options under this category, reducing the number of repair events and zero waste days needed to earn a point, and providing an additional point for holding numerous events. The goal of the repair events option is to change the throw-away culture and expand the useful life of goods. While zero waste days makes it easy for residents to donate gently used items to multiple nonprofits at the same place and time. The tool library or library of things must be open once a week. The library must consist of at least 30 items from a minimum of 3 categories. These are items that are bothersome to own or underutilized. Non-municipally run tool library qualify if the municipality provides substantial funding and promote them on their municipal website. RDP funds can be used to purchase tools for the tool library. Next slide, please. Thanks. Based upon the reduce reuse action plan, we also added a few more options under this criteria. Building permits required deconstruction, reuse, and also separation of construction and demolition waste. Engage in a pilot deconstruction project. Adopted and enforces regulations banning single-use items in favor of reusable. These are all new municipally run options added to the reuse criteria. You will be required to provide links or documentation, applicable language, or detailing specifics of the project. Next slide, please. Thanks. These are the new additions criteria. Dishwashers and reusable dishware are utilized in pre-K through 12th grade areas. Majority of the student population in a municipality or district attended a school that utilized dishwashers and dishware in cafeteria. Next slide. Thanks. Solid waste reduction. So full pay as you throw is now worth 5 points, while modified pay with excess tax stickers is worth 4 points. Just like how Rachel mentioned, like during the question that was asked. Board required that 50% of households served by the municipal trash program must participate. 64-gallon trash limit has been eliminated as this has minimal effect on trash reduction. Full details of each option, again, are listed in the guidelines. Thank you. Textile recovery. Some activities under this include permanent textile collection bin was located at a municipal drop-off location, transfer station, library, or other non-school public facility. You must complete 6 activities from a list of 13 activities in this section. Another example, popular one is textile recovery information and locations posted on community boards, library, schools, town hall, community centers, etc. With the textile waste ban that was effective August 1st, 2022, we increased the required activities to 6. This will continue to help increase awareness of the ban and diversion of textile from the waste stream. 149 municipalities earned this point. Soon this will be a prerequisite to apply for RDP as it is a waste ban item. Next slide, please. Outreach and education. You must complete a minimum of 5 activities out of 22 on the list of assorted educational and promotional efforts listed in the grant guidelines. Some examples include run a lawn sign campaign, publish a press release, send a reverse telephone call twice a year. And also we have programs like activities implemented on a temporary basis for the sole purpose of meeting this criteria during the evaluation process is strongly discouraged. This is something that I mentioned a while ago. I just want to reiterate that. But if the part highlighted in red is the new addition that we provided this time. A recycling campaign or recycling 101 refresher course for municipal buildings and schools was conducted and involved reminder notices for recycling specifics, the contribution of recycling to recycling markets and signing, Recycle Smart must be utilized. It will just help increase our recycling effort. Next slide, please. Yard waste, no changes to this criterion. Curbside collection at least 20 weeks a year is worth 2 points. Drop off open for at least 50 weeks a year is worth 2 points. And drop off open for at least 30 weeks a year is worth 1 point. Approved spending categories. This is just a reminder that RDP funds are intended to support recycling and waste reduction activities. Spending allowances for RDP and regional small scale are the same. Please check our approved spending categories as it has a broad range of eligible expenses. Funds do not have to be spent in the year awarded. And we also recommend a dedicated account for RDP funds. Just to underscore here that no special spending requests, to be considered moving forward. Next slide, please. Thank you. As illustrated on the chart, close to 7 million was carried over into 2023. So there are still some significant amount of funds out there. As you can see, spending increased by over 1 million in 2021, partly because I made some calls and it dropped in 2022. I said this last time that you've heard this from me before, but I want to still repeat it, that please spend your RDP money. We really want municipalities to invest in their solid waste programs. Next slide, please. Here are some additional resources for you, to use. And, with that, I'm grateful for your attention and open to questions, comments, concerns.
So we have a couple of questions in the chat. I'm going to try to relate them to the category. I think that's when they popped up too. So the first one is about bulky waste. Why are mattresses still listed as a bulky item? And I think in our details document, the items can be elected for disposal or recycling, but Will, if you want to add to that or confirm that, please go ahead.
Thank you, Kathy. I can say why it's still listed there. I had suggested to my supervisor about taking it out because it's a waistband item, but that conversation never really took off. So maybe my superior here, like Kathy, Rachel, Brooke.
Well, it was not a waistband item until November 1, 2002. So the fiscal year was July 1, 2002. So some people, were collecting them as bulky waste at the beginning of the year. They didn't have their program started. We wanted them, November 1, but definitely a few places were slower. There's a definition of mattresses in the waistband of what type of mattress is banned. And so there's certain exceptions if the mattress is extremely wet, moldy, or contaminated with bed bugs. So those mattresses do require disposal. So having a fee for disposing of those mattresses as a bulky item, would be appropriate. And, or a fee for mattresses that can be recycled and are going for recycling is also appropriate. So that's why, I think those are all the reasons why we kept it in for this year.
Thank you, Rachel.
All right, so the next question is about charm. When you say shredded paper, do you mean a paper shredding event where intact paper is shredded and then the shredded paper is recycled?
I need to look at that stuff again. Got my Bible here. Yeah, it's shredded events. Because mostly shredded paper. Yeah. So what is the question again?
So when you say shredded paper under charm, do you mean a paper shredding event where the paper is shredded and then recycled? Or do you just mean like the collection of shredded paper? what
I mean,
counts?
when I say shredded paper, it means that you can take it to a shredding event, you know, and shred the paper there. It's allowed, and also, it almost sounds like it means the same thing to me. I don't understand. Like, can she?
I think if people bring their own shredded paper, that counts as well. So some municipalities have specific shredded events, but they can also accept shredded paper from residents.
Can I just clarify my question?
Yes, please.
So with the charm, residents can drop off a whole list of items like string lights or whatever else is on the list. But like they're, in general, I don't think they're dropping off already shredded paper at our recycling center. And so I just wanted to clarify that a paper shredding event that shreds the paper is eligible, which it sounds like it is.
It is. That's why I say it just almost sounds like the same thing anyways. So, but yeah,
Thank you.
sure.
All right, and related to that, would the composting of shredded paper with other residential organics qualify?
Wow. That's like, I never had that one, but composted, if the paper is compostable, then, you know, why not? Unless the compost queens have something to add.
For the charm point, though, they're saying like you would take, instead of taking the shredded paper and sending it for recycling, you would compost it. Is that what?
No, I don't think that's.
Is that what they're asking?
I think so.
Here,
Okay.
let me speak
Yeah,
up
that's-
here. Okay, so shredded paper is absolutely recyclable if you send it to a high-grade paper recycler. So when the problem is when it goes to a MRF, it becomes confetti, it sticks to everything, but it's inherently very high quality recyclable paper. So when a shredder comes on site and shreds it, they are recycling that. They're not disposing of it. So if you have a relationship with, and there are a number of companies that usually they're offering data security services because they're shredding sensitive documents. If you have a relationship with one of those companies, you can send your shredded paper collected at a charm to that recycler to have it recycled. We don't want folks to have a bin for shredded paper at a charm and then just chuck it in the trash. That would defeat the purpose. If you are using the shredded paper and you're mixing it with compost, then that would be a form of diversion. And yes, that would qualify. If you have a shredder on site at your charm, all the better. As long as that material, well, a shredding company is always going to recycle that. They'd be throwing away dollar bills if they didn't recycle it.
All right, thank you, Brooke, for that explanation. I'm going to move on. Under DEI, if the municipality provides recycling services to some larger apartment complexes, but not all, does this qualify?
And I guess the question is why not all? Like it's like why what it, I need to understand like the details of why, you know, is it like you're providing it to, you're kind of separating it to focus on like low income, you know, like demographic, or like what, like I need to understand the details of the question. Like, is it because of lack of resources why you couldn't reach?
Christina Green asked this question and she just provided some clarification. We provide recycling to housing developments managed by the town, but not private enterprises. So they don't offer recycling services to private multifamily homes, but they do to the public, the housing developments. Christina, if you want to ask your question or clarify more, you can feel free to unmute. Oh, she said that's right. So maybe this is a larger conversation. Christina, if you want to reach out to Will after the webinar to talk a little more about that situation, I think that'd be fine.
I think part of the issue is that we found that sometimes unless the city or town has a comprehensive HOLA regulation, that apartment complexes, large ones, don't offer recycling. So by putting this item in the DEI category, it's expanding access and inclusion. And so I think that's the point, is that you would make sure that all apartment buildings are providing recycling. The ones that don't, the municipality would do that recycling. So I think that's kind of the point of that option, is to ensure that this other group of people, even if they're in a private apartment building or complex, do have access to recycling.
All right, thank you, Rachel. I'm going to move on. The next question, I believe, was around the hauler reg section. So if the municipality already receives 3 points under curbside recycling regulations for a staff member for 19 hours per week, can the municipality also receive additional points in that category for adopting and enforcing hauler regulations?
No. You only have, one option.
All right, thank you. Under reuse, can you please further define dishware? Does this have to include utensils?
Yes, I think dishware should utensil is a subset, like it's part of like the dishware infrastructure.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. I hope that sending a flyer could be reconsidered, as this is a paper using expensive activity. Arlington sends to residents that request it, lowering our printing from 20,000 to 1,000. Everyone else accesses the guide on our website. Can I please count this?
That approved spending question, I wonder.
Can you read that again, Kathy? I feel like I need to understand.
So printing a flyer should be considered.
Yeah, but it's on the list. So is it limited?
Well, I'm not sure if it's an approved spending question. I think it's like if they can get the point for it, but I'm not sure under which category they mean. Charlotte, if you want to let me know which one you were talking about, or unmute to ask the question.
Yeah, sorry, I can see that there's another checkoff box that's more specific. So I think it's maybe just that those two questions were separated by a bunch of other questions. Maybe just rearrange them so those two are side by side, then it's clear that there's still credit for having electronic newsletters and flyers available. If it was closer to that other question, I think it would be less confusing. So I'm all set with that question. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte. And just can you just under which criteria are you talking about?
This is waste prevention, outreach, and education.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine.
Yeah, no problem. I'm not sure that I'm seeing any other questions. There's a conversation about shredded paper vendors, and someone posted a link, or it's said to look on FAC 96 state contract for any shredding events. If anyone else has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or raise your hand. Oh, Phil has his hand up. Go ahead, Phil.
Yes, we have a staff person that is out full-time with TPW doing enforcement in a variety of ways. There's a lot of very specific criteria listed in how that needs to be documented. You need a vote by this board, but we had a town meeting vote, so there's a lot of little subtle differences that I think would accomplish the intent. So can I just work with Carrie on that detail and kind of see if that's going to work for you guys? Because this is a sign of sort of details I'm trying to drill down on the last minute here.
So I think this is for the curbside recycling regulations. And so there's two different things. For the regulation, I think you're talking about the bundled service and the way it's worded and how it's enforced and voted in. That is regulations that are imposed on the hauler. If
That's
you
not
have
what I'm asking. No.
Oh, okay.
No, we have a town trucks. This is for
So
the
you're
3 points.
talking about the employee that's doing enforcement of the curb?
Yeah, this is the enforcement that, right? So it's the 3 points, and we're trying to, get credit for a person that this is what they do. And
So they have to work minimum of 19 hours per week doing this.
Right, but again, this is, you get into a lot of the detail. You'll have required to. Okay, so let me see here. So the documentation on that, I thought it involved, description, the enforcement protocol, identification of the title, warnings and all of that. That's, so it's just the enforcement program, the policy, and there was some requirement to, you needed to vote something at a board, about your mandatory
That's for the
policy.
regulation.
That's okay. Just want to make sure.
That's for the regulation that's imposed on haulers.
Okay, so it's.
So yeah, if you're claiming the like the staff person kind of at the curb enforcing on residents, then you don't need the other documentation with like your regulation, because it's a different. Yeah, it's confusing that they're kind of combined together now.
Yeah, I think that's probably what was happening, and then there's some minor details that the way we manifest that, we may do a letter, we may not, we may go right to remove the container after a verbal warning. So again, the intent is to enforce. So if I can make a proposal, I'll work through Carrie on that. So, all right. Thank you. Yeah, this is some of the details that, as I was referring earlier, you get into, you're like, oh no, but thank you for your clarifications. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Phil. Thanks, Rachel.
Sorry, I just want to follow up on the question I put in the chat about the curbside recycling regulations. So I'm the solid waste and recycling coordinator. I'm out on the street minimum 19 hours per week. So we get 3 points for that. I'm just curious, there's not much incentive for us to adopt and enforce when we're not going to get any additional points for it. It seems like a lot of work and a time-consuming process.
For the hauler regulations.
Yes, because they fall under the same category.
Yeah, that's good feedback. They were separated categories at one point. I don't know that it's a lot of work. We have a best practices document and template out there. So it's literally, if you took MassDEP's guidance and sometimes edit it slightly, but yes, if it was adopted and in place, you can get 2 points. If you do that enforcement, you can get 4. So theoretically, you could get more than the 3 points with your dedicated staff person.
Yeah, so it's like a whole process. We have to get it like approved by the Board of Selectmen. It's not just like download your template and run with it.
Yeah, we know it has to be approved as a bylaw, ordinance, or regulation. Yeah, and so, I mean, that's something that municipalities will have to think about themselves, I guess. Again, if you do get it passed and you can enforce that, it gives you 4 points instead of 3. It was changed last year. I don't know, I would have to look at the notes as to kind of why, but it was because it was getting at the same intent of, the mandatory recycling and the quality recycling. So it was kind of, I think some people felt that, well, they're doing the same thing. It's just kind of 2 different populations, whether it's the residents or the private haulers that are serving other residents.
And I'll just add that, the reason that we give the 4 points for, that's right, Rachel, the 4 points for the adopting the ordinances, we know that is the highest bar. I mean, that's a heavy lift. We know that communities, you can have several tries at it. It can get politicized. So it's definitely the values of the amount of points given is directly related to the level of effort that is involved in achieving that goal. So it's a big one, but we think it's the top of the heap in terms of that, because it really ensures that there is universal recycling for those that are using private haulers.
Thank you, Brooke. Couple more questions. What do we do with textiles that are brought into our recycling center?
What did they do?
I replied to that one too for clarification about what you mean by a recycling center. Is this like your town's transfer station? I don't know if you want to unmute, or you could also, I do a lot of the textile stuff, so you could email me or Will to whatever's easier. And I'll also share the link to, if you say like, what do we do with textiles that are brought into our recycling center? And you are referring to like a recycling center or transfer station for your town, I'll share our list of textile collection organizations that can collect them. And if that doesn't answer your question, you can let us know.
I was just literally thinking about Beyond the Bin.
And Beyond the Bin is a great resource. Yep. I'll share that link too.
Okay, thanks, Michaela and Will. Question, I think within the waste prevention outreach and education, we sent a reverse telephone call message 2 times a year. Can this be about curbside yard waste collection or HHW days?
No, it's applicable to waste prevention and outreach education.
Okay. Kathy Mirza just had a comment. Please remember that municipalities can get assistance from the MACs, and I echo that. If you don't know who your MAC is, you can check our website and ask them any questions you may have. Let's see. Question from Marilyn. What about bulky items? And so I think this, again, what about bulky items that are being brought into our recycling center or transfer station?
So they ask,
Maybe
can they ask the full question? I don't like.
Yeah, why don't you unmute the maybe unmute the questioner and they can ask Will directly,
Let me see.
or invite them to unmute themselves.
Yeah, Marilyn, if you want to unmute, please go right ahead. I'm going to try to find you, see if I can do it.
It looks like she's unmuted, but I'm not hearing her.
Okay, maybe if you want to reach out after the fact, you can shoot an email over to Will and Michaela and just have a further discussion about those 2 items. Phil, you have your hand up, please go ahead.
Thanks. It was just, I'm getting down to what was confusing to me. So in that section, you had curbside recycling regulations, comprehensive hauler regulations. That's not, okay, that's not us. Enforced hauler regulation is not us. So I go to enforce mandatory and quality recycling requirements. All of those criteria relate to the number of points you get below for either the dedicated enforcement officer for 3 points, coordinator for 1 point or 1 point, correct?
Which category are you talking again about? I was texting with somebody. I was chat.
Okay. Curbside recycling regulations. So now we're down to the category that I'm referring to as the enforced mandatory and quality recycling requirements, which I presume all relate to the the points that are listed below it, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't have the guidelines in front of me.
I'll go over with Carrie, but it says something in there like again, I'm sorry, it's about a vote of a board or something. And we have mandatory policies, and we've had goals on reduction about the top 3 contaminants. We've had local comprehensive plans that were voted at town meeting. They may not match exactly the way you're saying, like it may be a board voted, the DPW had a policy, but the town meeting did the vote. So it's not.
Yeah, I could look at it with Carrie. I usually review that section, and you know, the things, I would look for a mandatory recycling policy. I think you need to have that. So that's probably what you're talking
Oh,
about.
yeah,
So
bylaw, yeah, we have
a
bylaw.
bylaw.
Yeah.
So we look for that as documentation, and then I look for documentation that there's actually like a staff person that's outside doing it. And what people have sent me is like their job description and you know, their hours, like, hey, yeah, they're 25 hours a week. And they've sent me documentation of what happened, how many carts were rejected or tagged, like an awarding tag. So those are the type of things
Thank you.
for that point that I'm looking for.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you very much for the feedback.
One comment from Charlotte, all of our websites are designed differently. I now have an accordion feature that doesn't allow me to insert a specific link into retrack. So that may be part of what frustrates the reviewers. So I think with this, you know, sometimes the websites have some limitations, but there is a comment box at the end of the RDP application that we do look at when doing evaluations. If you want to include that as a note, just as like an FYI for whoever's reviewing that, it would be helpful just to say, might have to spend a little more extra time on this specific one looking, but I think we would appreciate like the heads up just to know what's sort of going on. And other than that, I'm not seeing any other questions. Janice, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of going back to Charlotte's comment, as one of the people who is often looking for information, sometimes, and just a tip, if you're like talking about an advertisement and you link to Facebook, sometimes it just goes to your Facebook page and doesn't actually go to the actual post that you were trying to send us to. So if that's the case, what I usually do, especially because I'm looking for organics and recycling center stuff, is I'll send you an email to say like, this is the link I got, it didn't work. Can you please send me either a screenshot or something else? So we do give you the option. We try to help you help us. So it's good to know that you have that weird function, but yeah, please do just try to like paint a picture, tell us where to look, because it's time consuming when we have to search, and it makes us think, well, if we can't find it and we know what to look for, then how's a resident going to find it if they don't know maybe they don't know what the search terms are.
Thanks, Janice. And it's about 12, so Rachel, go ahead.
So yeah, it's about that time. We used our whole time, which is great. I put our contact information on this slide. So if you have, you know, general questions, mattresses, pay as you throw, contact me, list Michaela, Brooks, and Will's information as well. And then we will be sharing the last few slides here, like you don't really have to pay attention to, but it's links for everything that we referenced in the PowerPoint. So often we included a hyperlink. This is the actual URLs. That way, if you're cutting and pasting from a PDF, you'll have access to all these links. So anyway, thank you for coming. Hopefully we answered your questions. And if we didn't, just reach out to one of us here offline, and we're happy to help. June 14th is the deadline. So we've got just a little bit over a month, 11:59 p.m. that retract shuts down. So please, you know, don't wait till last minute.
Real quick, Rachel, do you share the slides via email, and are they posted on our SMRP website I'm seeing in the chat?
Yes, they will be posted on our website. We will share via email after, and we can share a link to the recording as well. I think we posted on our, I don't know if we post the recording on our website too.
We do, usually, yeah.
Perfect.
Under where on the website?
The SMRP webpage, so the general SMRP guide. All right, well, thanks everybody for attending, and good luck. We hope to hear from you soon.
Thank you.